Welcome to Music Outlook LA, the podcast which highlights the independent artist, whether they are a musician, vocalist, actor, actress, live audio or in-studio engineer, or a videographer, photographer. I'm your host, Will Klymshyn. Each episode, we'll look at the gigs of the independent artists, from the venues we play to how we set up and break down, the gear we use and why we use it, and the info we hope you'll find useful as we all make our way in the entertainment industry. Music Outlook LA is brought to you by Kim Z Entertainment LLC. Go to kim-zentertainment.com to find out what they're doing for the independent artist. Kim Z Entertainment LLC. Independent entertainment done independently. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Music Outlook LA, gigs, gear, and info, and my guest today is John Klymshyn. John is a motivational speaker and, as you can see by the instruments on the back, a guitar player. And I love that. There we go. Rock guitar, if I'm not mistaken. But if I got the wrong genre, we'll clear that one up. But we're talking with John today, who is a Navy vet. And he's a leadership expert, author, and motivational speaker. And one of the things he does, he talks with executives on unlocking their creative potential. So we're going to talk about that and a lot of other things and how he just basically motivates people, which we musicians, like everybody else on the planet, needs every once in a while. Nice swift kick in the tuchus. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is
bilingual. I didn't know you spoke.
I try to be. I was telling my previous guest, if I weren't a musician, I would have been an English major because I love multisyllabic words as well as words of other cultures. So I dabble.
Excellent.
Jack of all trades, master of none.
Okay. I get it. So that tells me that in your head right now, there is a veritable plethora of idioms and metaphors and similes. And
yes.
Probably all of them are tied together by some melody that has been with you, haunting you, or getting ready to come out of you.
There you go. I'm in the cover band, then we do rock and funk and everything. And one of the songs we do is Romantics. We do two of their songs. We do What I Like About You, but the song that's running now in my head that's appropriate to what you just said is Talking in Your Sleep. So in my sleep, I'm having all these metaphorical analysis going on. And yes, I tend to extrapolate my phraseology in the most profound and exonerable fashion. So,
wow, I am floored by your onomatopoeic ability.
Oh my gosh. I teased with other friends and I said, one of my favorite words is anti-disestablishmentarianism. And they had me define it. And I guess the short version is you're for and against the establishment simultaneously, which I don't know, but there you go. I guess at one point you have to be for it, and when they mess up, you're against. But anyway, that's, like I said, I'd be an English teacher if I weren't a musician. We're either good at math for counting purposes and other things, or we're good with the spoken word for lyrics.
Exactly.
So that's us. But John, and as they call you, Coach K.
They do.
Let's talk about your diverse career. You've gone, as I mentioned earlier, from Navy veteran to sales and leadership expert, an author, and a motivational speaker. So how did the music play a role in your life during those different phases?
Well, don't you love when there's something going on in you, with you, and around you, and in your work that is clearly obvious to everyone around you, but somehow not obvious to you? Over the course of time since I left the Navy and I married my wife and dragged her back to New York City because I was planning on being a famous songwriter, the the constant thread has always been music, because as someone that you and I have something in common. I don't know that I would have the patience to be an English teacher, but I spend a lot of time teaching people the wonder, the glory, and how useful it is to elevate the language that we use, the language that we craft, the language that we deliver. So it was probably about 12 years ago. I had a client that was an attorney, and very bright woman, very funny. And I said to her, I've always been interested in the intersection between language and music. And it had never occurred to me before that moment, Will. It just came out of my mouth. And she said something very interesting. She said, well, that's your path of inquiry. And I looked at her and I said, what does that mean? And she said, I have no idea. I've never said that before. And I said, okay, so I've never said I was interested in the intersection between language and music, and you've never said that. Well, here's what when I reflected on the train ride back from San Diego back up to Los Angeles, I reflected on that, and I thought, I was selected when I was in 7th grade in New York to start studying a foreign language. Now, because of history, because of background, because of whatever, I was given the selection of either studying German, French, Spanish, or Russian. I chose Russian. Turns out our family is actually Ukrainian, and we won't get into that long discussion today. However, there are some similarities between Russian and Ukrainian, and I studied Russian for 5 years, from 7th to 11th grade. It helped me to graduate a year early, and I found that I had an ear for languages. My first Russian teacher, she said to me, "Talentovomu malchiku," which in Russian means you're a talented student. And she said, when I listen to you speak Russian, I hear a Muscovite. She says that your phrasing, your tonality, your emphases, it sounds like someone who grew up speaking Russian. So later in life, as I joined the Navy and I was sent over to southern Spain, thank you tax dollars, I spent 6 months on the Costa del Sol, and we had people co-working with us from that were Spanish nationals. And part of the United States agreement with Spain at that time was that a percentage of jobs being done on the Navy base had to be done and filled by Spanish nationals. And when I found this out and I started working with them, I asked them, please only speak to me in Spanish. Because I thought the more they speak to me in Spanish, the easier it will be for me to pick it up and become conversational. And in a very short period of time, I did. So fast forward to many years later, and I'll tie it all together. The great gift that musicians have is their ear. We hear tones, we hear half tones, we hear and feel resonance. And I think that we are consciously aware of that. Earlier in life, it's almost instinctive to us. The old musician joke, right? The fact that you can play the trumpet doesn't mean that you should. A lot of people can pick up an instrument and get sound out of it. And then there are musicians.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
I've seen a whole bunch of people pick up an alto sax, and I've also listened to Branford Marsalis. Sorry, there's a huge gap.
We are kindred spirits. I know we are. We've got to be. Here's the first one. My wife did the 23andMe. Guess how much of me is Russian? I've got 10%. Yes.
How much?
I've got 10% Ukrainian. I'm not joking.
Whoa.
Yes. So I teased my wife and I said, oh, so that means I'm going to have to learn to eat borscht, huh?
Well, fortunately, neither of us have had to suffer through that.
I understand it's like Russian version of shepherd's pie. Yeah, exactly. That was the closest dish I could think of. But as soon as you said Ukrainian, I'm like, okay, yeah, that's another conversation for another time. But I have that in my blood. So, and the second thing is, you had me at Branford Marsalis, and that's all I'm gonna say.
Understood. I get it. And I don't know why I thought of him, but anyway, whenever I'm sitting down to write, to work on one of my books, I put on The Ruby and the Pearl.
Enough said.
It is such a masterful piece of writing and a masterful performance. For them to have been able to capture that in the studio is wonderful. And here's the thing. You said that you've interviewed a lot of different people, and most of the people that are going to listen to this, watch this, read the transcript, whatever, that they're on their own. Well, the truth is we're all on our own. The sooner that we can embrace that and figure out what it is that we want to do, the happier we will be, because the more clarity of mind we will have. I think there's, well, not I think, I believe that there's something called the decision funnel, right? The decision funnel starts way up here every morning, and all it is full of all of the things that we could do today, right?
Right.
I could go learn how to fly an aircraft. I could see whether or not I can master calculus, or I could do what I'm really good at.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So I
Right.
could do all of these things. Then we filter those out as the coffee is starting to take its effect, and we say, okay, here's the smaller universe of things that I should do. And should is a very potent word. And I think that the choices that we make every single day, because today is gone like that, the choices that we make every day have to be driven by, what is it that I should do today? Should I work on my career? Should I find more people to collaborate with? Should I sit down and do what I've been promising people I've been going to do for a long time? And then there's the big one, the really, really small universe of what I will do. With technology and with distractions and with options, we can get distracted. We can suffer from what I call shiny object syndrome. What is it that you are going to, what will you do today? And you have to do it with a level of will. And when we talk about Branford and we talk about innumerable musicians, composers, artists, there is a big difference between inspiration and motivation. And you said earlier, I'm a motivational speaker. When I get to be in front of audiences, they get a little worked up. I'm high energy and I'm talking a lot, and I'll make, weird jokes and stuff. The transformation is going to come when people can connect with what inspires them. Pablo Picasso was asked, "Where do you get inspiration?" And his response was, "I believe in inspiration, but it tends to show up when I'm busy working."
Wow. Wow. And I thought the definition of a musician was a good one.
Well, thank
Someone
you.
who loads $5,000 worth of gear into a $1,000 car to drive 100 miles for a $50 gig.
And talks about it for 3 weeks beforehand and for a month after.
There you go. Because we love it. We do what we love. And that's pretty much all anybody can ask of you. And you just segued into the next one that I want to ask. And I'm going to skip one and go to this one. Creative potential. You work with executives and I'm sure other people to unlock that creative potential. So how do you see the connection between musical creativity and the kind of creativity that's needed for success in business and leadership?
Well, it's a great question, and I'm glad that you skipped to it, because unlocking indicates that something is frozen, locked, stored away, or kept away from the person with the potential. And that's okay, because this is in the vernacular, it's a colloquialism, and I know you love both of those words.
Right.
So here's the thing. What I realized some years ago when I was working on my 8th book, what I realized was that the reason I had gotten to an 8th book was because I had developed the ability and the discipline which we musicians, whether we admit it or not, the reason that we can perform music is because we are disciplined.
Mm-hmm.
We don't suffer through discipline, we enact discipline. When someone says, "Oh, I've always wanted to play the blank," my first question is, "And where is it?" You talking to me about it, as opposed to going to the music store and getting one and getting your first 10 lessons, that's on you. And again, that's the difference between motivation and inspiration. Here's where it boils down to in those two words, and then I'll get back to creative potential. The distinction and difference between motivation and inspiration, Will, is that motivation fades, inspiration feeds.
I love it.
Motivation fades. The reason I'm doing what I'm doing today, that decision, right? Here are all the things I could do. Here's some of the things I should do. Here's what I will do. Wow, how about that? It's almost like I invented it just for this conversation, Will. Here's what I will do, right?
Where there's a will, there's a way. I am the will, therefore the way. No, I'm getting a little bit.
As long as you're not the truth in the life, then we're good.
Never, never, never.
All right.
Just willpower.
Willpower. So, and I have to ask you about who you believe is the true king of funk. I want to hear that answer in a minute. Because I have my own opinion. The motivation fades. Why? Because there are multiple things that motivate people, meaning get them up off their right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, yeah.
Sometimes it is fear. Sometimes it is lack. Sometimes it is I have to. Inspiration is very different. Inspiration keeps us up till 1 o'clock in the morning. Inspiration has us jump out of bed and find a pen and a paper to write something down. Inspiration feeds, meaning I have a regular appetite for that, and I want to continue to be fed. So how do we unlock creative potential? Well, I realized, as I said, when I was working on my 8th book, I realized that when I was talking with a friend of mine who was a screenwriter, a guy named Michael Albanese, who's just this brilliant dude, we were talking about work and getting projects done and all of that. And I said, well, man, sometimes you just got to open the valve. And I did this motion next to my head. And that the opening the valve, I said to him, I don't need a special place to create. I don't need a special environment to create. I don't need the room to be this temperature or the sun to be at this angle. I open the valve, and I've disciplined myself. I've practiced enough to be able to open the valve at will. And again, there's the will. So I'm excited to be talking to you today because we are just about to publish my next book, which is all about this unlocking of creativity. And it's called Open the Valve: The New Path to Creative Play. And what I love about being a musician from the time I was 14 years old, man, and by then I had been banging on drums for 5 years already. Mm-hmm. What I love about being a musician is what you and I do when we are, quote, working. Mm-hmm. It's referred to as play.
Yeah.
What a wonderful gift that is. I have to go play. I'm going to go play a gig. Hey, I want to get together with a couple of buddies of mine and we're just going to play. I mean, come on. That's releasing the child. That's embracing the wonder of what language, what music is, because language, every language on earth, you being a language fanatic and aficionado, language at its core is music.
Yes. Music is its own language in and of itself. As you very well know, the theory behind music, eighth notes, quarter notes, whole notes, half notes, how you can put C in the bass over a D minor 7, to know that D minor 7 can also have a fifth as a flat. The various theories and things of that nature. I was telling a previous guest, music has rules that are meant to be broken. The thing is, we do it because we love it. We understand what we're doing. We've taken the piano lessons, the guitar lessons, the sax lessons, trumpet, trombone, and other instruments because we love it. I had a high school teacher who recently passed at Palisades. His name was Joel Lish.
I'm sorry.
and we were doing West Side Story, my junior year. This would have been 82. And the bass player was out sick, good friend of mine. And he asked me, Will, could you go play bass? I'm like, I don't know how to play bass. I play clarinet and I play piano. That's all I know. And he said, You pick up stuff easily. There's the beginner's book, 4 strings, E, A, D, G, chromatic scale. I just need to hear the whole notes. Just go play it. So I go and I pick up the bass, and the bass, stand up acoustic, is bigger than me. I'm only 5'5". I mean, the bass is way up here, and I had to get one of the stools, sit on the stool, and I had to use my ear because the acoustic stand-up bass, for those people that don't know, has no frets. So I had to guess roughly where it is with my ear and what I've seen my friend do. And somehow I was able to keep up with half of the song, and that's ended up how I ended up doing bass. I don't play it as well as the other instruments, but I play well enough that if somebody's out sick, I can at least give you the tonic of the chord, whole notes, half notes, where the band can at least have that semi-full sound going.
Right.
He also asked me to pick up the oboe. He said, the oboe is just like a clarinet. You also play bass clarinet. Please, I need to hear the oboe. So by the time we got ready to do West Side Story, I had a Casio keyboard in front of me. I had a clarinet over here, a bass clarinet over here. I had an oboe and a bassoon, and then behind me is stand-up bass. And everybody's looking at me. This is at Pally, and everybody's looking at me like, Will, are you, can you get out if you have to go to the restroom? I'm like, yeah, if I step over this here and tread lightly. Because like I said, one of the musicians in the band that we're playing is actually called Goat Rodeo, and we cover various songs from the 60s on up. And we're covering Jay Giles' Flamethrower, and we were playing at a trip in Santa Monica, but the stage is small, and I have a full-size 88 keyboard and a 61 on top. So I got big instruments, and I'm the smallest guy in the band, and they stick me all the way in the corner, and I've got to sing the lead on this song, and I'm like, okay, so if I get over here, I'm stuck in the corner, literally. So, but we worked it out, and that's, I get it. I totally get it. I mean, we could go on about music and motivation, and that is going to segue into, and I'm going everywhere with this. Do you think that your music or the music that and I was going to ask if you use any music in your seminars, if so, do you think that it helps to create a certain atmosphere or to help illustrate a point? And if you do, what kind of music do you put in there and why do you use it?
Okay. I absolutely have incorporated music into what I do, however, not recorded music, nor do
Right.
I bring anything like what you see behind me. What I do is I show up with the first musical instrument on earth. You know what that is?
I'm not going to say a sitar. You got me.
The human voice.
Voice, the human voice. Yeah.
So think about it. I said before that language at its core is music, and language, you said, has its own music. Of course it does. So as a speaker, as I'm moving around a room with 40, 50, 175 people over the course of my speaking career, I've learned that planting myself at the front of the room behind a podium is killing half of the energy that we can share. right? This is
Mm.
why musicians that don't have 88 keys that are sitting on the stage, that's why they move around so much, right? Drummers, we're flailing like this, right? I was a drummer first and then a singer, and now effectively what I am a singer who plays guitar. I wish I was a better guitarist, but we're never happy. So the language, the music that I bring to what I do is all about how I use my voice. Because when I have a specific tempo, when I bring a certain timbre, and when I start to make a point and I clap my hands or I slap against my chest, I will also make jokes. I'll say, one of the things we need to do is we need to make sure we don't forget this key point out. So just using little devices like that. Their music is in every cell of my body. It is in every fiber of my being. It is I was just doing a coaching session with an executive, and I shared with her what we hear, the sense of hearing, because we see, we smell, we touch, we taste. The sense of hearing is the one sense that we have that is completely unfiltered.
Hmm.
When you hear something that resonates with you, you do things like what you just did. Because that resonance is what makes us feel alive. So my journey at this point, my path of inquiry is how do I help more people, as many people as possible, to find to explore depth in their life and feel resonance in their work, whether it's performance, whether it's writing, whether it's figuring out numbers on a spreadsheet, whether it's leading a company that does $100 million a year in revenue. This is these are the arenas I operate in. So when we talk about opening the valve, when we talk about unlocking creativity, where that comes from, Will, is from asking questions that don't make people think. Those questions invite people to think.
Right.
Einstein said that thinking is the single most difficult operation that anyone would potentially involve themselves in, and that's why so few people do. Boom.
Mic drop. Mic drop. Like I said, we got to be kindred spirits because you went right back to where I was going to go on the creative potential and unlocking the valve, which leads me to this.
Okay.
Many musicians find that their creative process helps them to overcome challenges. So, have you found any parallels between the creative process in music and problem solving that's required in business?
The single most glaring is the power of collaboration.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we collaborate, kind of like our conversation today, right?
Yeah.
We had no idea where it was going to go. Of course, we prepared some questions, but we didn't know whether or not we were going to connect or find things in common or laugh together. And here's the thing: when we laugh with someone else, that is a spiritual connection that nothing takes the place of. And that what that does in the and I'm not saying that we need to laugh around business. What I'm saying is when we can not make ourselves the focal point and we can focus on what contribution we can make, and we are not impeded by ego, then stuff comes out of collaboration that no one expected. So the parallel between being creative and the creative process and being a musician and operating in the business world. And I think that many musicians and band leaders and songwriters, I think they allow ego to get in their way because the way that business operates is not based on how you feel. The way business operates is whether the question is how can we make a profit? That may sound Machiavellian, but here's the thing. We get to play when we make music. When that music communicates and connects with an audience, there's an exchange there. And the business world, the currency is not music, the currency is currency. In a musical experience, the currency is feeling, emotion, resonance. So how do we bring that into the business world? Well, businesses only exist for one reason, and that is to generate profit, not to make money. Like you said, what's a musician? The X amount of $1,000 worth of gear, spending this much on gas, driving this many hours to make a tenth of that back. Well,
Hmm.
that's not a profitable venture.
No.
So, how do we make it profitable? And the word profitable has a bunch of different meanings. Sometimes it means it's profitable health-wise. Sometimes it means it's profitable peace of mind-wise. And in the business world, it is cut and dried. It is unyielding. At the end of the month, you need to report your numbers. At the end of the quarter, you need to report your numbers. Well, when I realized that early in my professional career, when I was struggling to be a successful songwriter and figuring out how to collaborate with my co-songwriter and managing a brand new marriage, boy, there were a lot of sparks flying all over the place. What I focused on was when I'm at work, when I am in my role in corporate America, my they are paying me to be there and to produce, not to just occupy a desk. So, one of my most successful books is about creating, leading, managing, and inspiring teams of salespeople. And if you think musicians are psychotic, you should meet some people that sell for a living. Oh my God.
Wow.
Mm,
Mic
mm.
drop number 12. Are we on now? Wow. You asked me, and before I forget, because my brain goes in all sorts of different directions, I just want to answer this before, because you might want to have it answered later. But greatest funk artist, my favorite artist, period, is Prince.
Prince.
Man played 17 instruments.
He was a
Self-taught on
one.
a lot of them and taught himself how to read music and all that. I'm done.
Okay. Well, I love Prince. I absolutely love Prince. It breaks my heart that I was in Vegas more than once when he was playing the Rio, and I did not convince my wife to go. I'm just heartbroken. I never got to see the man play professionally. But here's the thing. Yes, absolutely the king of funk. Here's the thing. When you are doing a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame tribute to George Harrison, and you have Tom
I'm
Petty,
petty.
Eric
Yes, I
Clapton.
knew you were going to go there.
Oh yeah.
That
Who's
was
They asked Clapton, they asked him that night, what's it like to be the greatest guitarist on earth? And he said, you should go ask Prince.
Prince.
Yes. Now, who did Prince look up to and say was the inventor of funk?
Larry Graham.
No, no. But thank you for playing. Sly.
Forgot about Sly.
Sly.
I forgot.
Thank you for letting me
Be
be myself
myself
again.
again.
Come on now.
There you go. There you go.
Too white, man. I can't do that. That's it. Thank you. You just made my day. So
I
here's the
mean,
thing. We're all stumbling through this life. We are all, and here's one of the key concepts that I have 116 conversations a week
mhm.
about people saying, well, I just want to find more balance in my life. And my response is, please stop. You are never going to have a balanced life. You will never balance life and work. You will never balance your relationships at home with the relationships outside of the home. No. Why? Because here's the thing. Balance means that everything is equally weighted.
Mhm.
And that's never going to happen. The image you have behind you is a mixing board.
Yes.
Is every fader always in the exact same spot?
Never.
Of course
Never.
not, because the
Never.
bass is trying to take over. Boom, 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 boom. Come on, man, we need more bass, dude. This song is written on guitar. It has 3 guitar parts. All we need is the bottom. And that's why we ask the bass player to leave when the producer's in the room. But anyway.
Well, I like to think that somebody with a cowbell would disagree.
Oh, I just happen to have one. Would you like more cowbell?
Yes, we need more cowbell.
All right, so here's the thing. Don't look for balance. I think it is the great American lie that we should try to find work-life balance. Excuse the expression, that's horse shit.
Yeah.
You know what we need to find? You know what you and I find? You know what I think we have enjoyed here together? Harmony.
Yes.
When I am in harmony, I'm unstoppable. When I am in harmony, I'm inspired. When I am in harmony, people are drawn to me. And I'm not talking about me, Klymshyn. I'm talking about us humans stumbling through this life. Replace the search, the work toward, the desire, the obsession with balance. Replace that with working toward harmony.
There you go. There you go. I mean, I think we all struggle at some point to find harmony. But like you said, people try to find balance. And I was today years old when I realized that I was one of those people who tried to balance everything out. I will now accept the fact that things just aren't going to balance, but I will say this: I do trust the process.
And you have to trust the process. I mean, I believe I'm a little older than you, and we're not going to get into that. But when I was growing up, there was a regular television show on Sunday nights, and every couple of weeks, they would have a performer on that was a plate spinner. You familiar with this concept?
Yes.
Okay. So for those that are not, the gentleman would have a big table and he'd have a bunch of poles, right? Plates, and he would start spinning the plate so that it was spinning so quickly that it would make it stay in place. And then he would start another one and another one and another one and another one. And the whole performance was making sure that he could keep all those plates spinning. And the music was
The can.
That's exactly. But here's the thing: we cannot live constantly kicking up our legs every half a second.
Yeah, we can't.
We got to find the quiet time. We got to find the time for. There's a time for ballads, and there's a time for what was that Jay Giles song you were talking about?
Flamethrower.
Flamethrower. And that's what makes the joy of creating a set so wonderful. And that's why we rehearse. And that is why we think about what we're saying during rehearsal, because it is up to us not to motivate our band members, but to find what inspires them and to keep feeding that in whatever way we can. And the thing about balance means that ego gets left at the door.
Famous line Quincy Jones used when he was doing when they were doing We Are the World. He had the big sign over the door: check your ego at the door.
The door.
I'm sorry, before I forget, Beethoven. And I looked over on my wall here, and I got this from Amazon. Nice wall decoration, because I noticed yours says inspire. I have a quote from Beethoven: to play a wrong note is insignificant. To play without passion is inexcusable.
Well,
I have a mic drop. The score is 100 for John, 1 for Will.
I love it.
That's it. I mean, just talking to you is inspiring me to do more. And I guess that's what you go out and you do. You help people open the valve, unlock the potential. And your books, when you were writing them, I was speaking with a a film critic before, and he was talking about going and looking at, the whole body of work. And we also got to talking about the script and comparing it to the music and the rules and how not to basically leave plot holes in the script. Similar to music, don't put the wrong tension in your chord change unless you're doing it on purpose and you're trying to create some kind of dissonance. But with regards to your books, how did the process of writing your books and or promoting them, getting them out there, which is like releasing an album or whatever, how did that influence your understanding of reaching the audience and maybe building a following? Because we are talking to young musicians, young writers, people in the industry in various walks of life who are not doing this through the old traditional like record labels or the big machine or whatever. And they're like me, doing it on our own. You also mentioned that at the end of the day, as a business owner and business person, at the end of the day, you have to have your balance sheet finished. At the end of the quarter, and I'm paraphrasing, but at the end of the quarter, you have to have the numbers ready to present to the boss. So we're talking to the young people to try and give them, and older folks, whatever, that are just trying to get into it. And they have to build a following to some degree outside of the love for what you're doing. So how did all of this help you? Did it? I think you know where I'm trying to
I
go.
do. Well, here's the thing. The discipline that we put into learning our instrument, learning our limitations on our instrument, learning how to express ourselves through that instrument, whether it's the voice, whether it's spoken word, rap, whether it's singing, whether it's a cappella, whether it's learning an instrument, that requires discipline. Because as you said, dissonance is not attractive unless it's intentional. I mean, I'm a huge Frank Zappa fan. And
The Dangerous Kitchen.
yeah, baby, that's exactly right.
If it ain't one thing, it's another. The zucchini will eat you for supper.
Billy was a mountain. Zappa was a tree growing on his shoulder. So anybody that hasn't heard Zappa, they're probably not going to go listen now, but that's okay. So I remember an interview with him where he was asked, how did you know what you wanted your music to sound like? Now, he was a huge fan of the composer Edgar Varese. And he went to his music teacher, his piano teacher, Zappa did, and he said, "What is it that's going on in here that thrills me?" And his teacher said, "Parallel fourths." That's all he needed to hear.
Yeah.
Because you hear parallel fourths in the percussion work, his guitar work, the horn stuff that he did with the Brecker brothers. I mean, he loves the parallel fourth, right?
He does.
My thing, and the reason I picked up the guitar after playing drums and percussion and baritone horn and flute and singing for the reason I picked up the guitar is I wanted to understand, number one, structure of song. And number two, predominantly as a singer, that's the one thing that's been constant throughout my whole life, is that where my passion is and what interests me is pursuit of melody.
Yeah.
People ask me, what kind of music do you play? Music with a melody. Okay. So, I mean, I'm doing standards, I'm doing John Mayer, I'm doing Elton John songs on guitar. Why? Because the melody is just heartbreaking. It's so beautiful, right? So you asked me, forgive me, I go off on tangents too. You asked me
all right.
what do we need to know? Well, here's what we need to know is that number one, my definition of multitasking is doing several things poorly. Don't tell me that you're reading and listening and writing and doing that all at the same time. Sorry, no. When it's time for you to do a task, perform a function, shut the world off and focus on that function. Now, since I've been writing for decades, yes, I will put jazz on in the background
Yeah.
because it inspires me and it keeps me from paying attention to cars driving down the street or whether or not my cat is jumping up and down on my door over here. But
Hmm.
what it does is it and this is, you know, this, you're very familiar with this. What it does is it invites me into a state of flow.
Yes.
And when I am in a state of flow, time does not exist. Reasons for me not to be successful no longer exist because I have opened the valve and I'm tapping into the unlimited wellspring of creativity that we all have access to. So, since oh well, I want to do this and I want to do this and I want to do that. Okay, tomorrow morning, write a task list. Write down 10 things that you will accomplish without distraction. And when I say accomplish, I mean to completion.
Right.
And if you can't get through 10, fine, get through 7.
Hmm.
Because at the end of the day, when you can look at yourself in the mirror and say, I got stuff done today. Not I worked on stuff. Not I played with stuff. Not I thought about stuff. Oh, I started, but I got distracted. No. You know what the sexiest word on earth is? DONE.
Done. What they like to say in the church, done and done.
Done and done. Amen to that.
And I've played at a handful of churches here and there, Methodist, Catholic. I was raised in the Methodist church, played for Catholic church, played Presbyterian church, Baptist church, Southern Baptist. And the funny thing is, they all ask me the same thing. And this is the one instrument I just have not gotten around to. I've tried it, but I've got a right ankle issue. It doesn't always cooperate. I don't play organ. I can play two keyboards at once, but
Right.
I can't get, and it's my ankle. I messed it up years ago going after, like a dummy. I played basketball on an 8-foot court, and I actually could slam dunk at the time, and I landed sideways on it, and I haven't been able to get it to act right since. So I can tell you when it's about to rain.
I'm sure you can.
But that's the only thing I just never played. And I mention that only because every church that I've ever played at want to know if I can play organ. And I say, yeah, poorly. I can play the two keyboards, but I can't get the feet right. That's because the feet, if you can't do the feet, you know, I said, well,
Doesn't
how
make sense.
about I either get on the piano or I bring my keyboards and I'll just split the keyboard, play bass in the one and do an organ up here and whatever. And they're like, oh, you can do that? Yeah, I can do that. That I can do and not sound ridiculous. It just, that tangent, it just, boom, popped right up into my head.
I get it.
Motivation. I you've dropped so many mics on me that any question I've sent you just seems to pale in comparison to the man that I just met and spoken to in email over the last couple of weeks or so. It's just, we could go on and on about this. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to put in the show notes his book titles and all the other things we've talked about because we've only touched on a few things. But I'm going to put all of that in the show notes so that you guys can be able to go look. Because like I said, Coach K, there are people out there who are not just musicians, but I am talking to the musical world.
Sure.
And we lose our motivation. You know, you get stuck writing a song and you just don't know what lyric is going to come next. Or you were saying about your favorite, as far as music goes, it was it
Melodic.
your melodies. My thing is chord tensions. I love ninths and 13ths. I went to school with Delphio Marcellus. So I met Branford once and I saw Delphio practically every day. I went to school with a number of people. Maynard Ferguson's daughter, Benson's son, Robbie, we talk. Ramsey Lewis's son, Kelly. Kelly and I hung out often. I know
I love Ramsey Lewis's
I
work.
shouldn't name drop, but yeah, I did
That's
know a
all
few
right.
people. Hey, I went to high school with J.J. Abrams and Peter DeLuise, so there you go.
Wow.
But the thing is, you brought up Branford. I put on Miles Davis, and I put on usually ESP. Ba-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da. It's just something about that song, and it puts me in a zone to where I can get things done.
Done.
That's it.
It's such a great
I have
song.
to have you back on another show because we just barely scratched the surface here. And like I was saying before, with everything that's going on here in Los Angeles now, um, I needed to do this. I needed to get out of the funk, not the rhythm funk, but
Right.
just kind of and sit up straight. And I will check on my people later on. I've got one more guest to talk with as soon as we're finished, and everything. So basically, I'm okay. We're okay. The Palisades will rebuild. Hollywood will rebuild. Burbank will rebuild. The other places that have gotten on fire due to the embers flying and whatever else, all of it will rebuild. I have one of my band members. He lives up in West Hills, and he came close to having to get out, so I'm going to have to reach out to him and talk to him. But I always end all of my interviews, and John, again, Coach K, you're a blessing. And I know you're not going to, but don't let anybody tell you any different, man. I
Well, thank you
in
for that.
the talking to you, just I'm going to see you in my head now when I'm lacking. And it's like, John's not going to like this one. I'm not going to tell him. Oh no, I can't tell him this one. Okay, let me not multitask and just stick to one thing at a time, or whatever the case happens to be. But here's the last one, and I know you can appreciate this as a musician, and I put it this way for a reason. What's in your car? In other words, what do you listen to when you're out and about? You mentioned a couple of things. Who do you listen to when you go? You mentioned jazz when you're working. Just throw out some people.
Huge King Crimson fan. I'm a huge John Mayer fan. My son has introduced me to Tool. He and I went to a show last year right here in Nampa, Idaho.
Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you where the great joy of listening to music is for me now and has been for probably about 5 months. It's on XM radio.
Mm-hmm.
John Mayer has his own channel.
Yeah.
And what he does is he plays the music that he loves. He as he should, he plays the music that he has created. And
Mm-hmm.
what is cool is that he talks about it. There is a DJ, I guess they don't call them DJs anymore. There's another guy that works on XM named Earl Bailey, and he's on both deep cuts and classic vinyl. And Earl Bailey was a DJ on Long Island where I grew up for a radio station called WLIR, which, wow, isn't that convenient? Long Island Radio.
Mm-hmm.
And he would just bring such eclectic sets together, right? He would, if it was about food, he would find 17 songs about food and they would just play them all in a row. And what John Mayer is doing is the closest to eclectic, listenable radio that I've heard in 20 years. I told you before, I lived in Los Angeles for 37 years. Very difficult to find a radio station that wasn't programmed to be programmed so that everybody could run the program, right?
Yeah.
Us musicians, we want to hear Tori Amos, and then we want to hear Katie Lang, and then we want to hear Tool. It's
Mm-hmm.
I want to listen to that. Wow. Oh, I forgot about this one. He did an introduction to a Bonnie Raitt tune that I have loved for years, and it's called "The Only One," and it was
Mm-hmm.
produced by Don Was, and it just has this really upbeat kind of thing, and there are these background singers. He's got male background singers on the tune, and just has this optimistic, upbeat, popish thing, and it's so out of character for Bonnie Raitt because she was a R&B, guitarist who just lived in the world of Little Feat and all those cats. But when you ask me what do I listen to, the first button I push in my truck is Life with John Mayer, and I get no royalties for saying that.
We cover Queen of California. Um, it's one of the older ones, I guess, that got his career off. It was one of the pop ones that fall in the, I guess, on the category of what he does. I don't know how else to say it, but
Yeah,
that's one
no,
of
I
the
understand
covers.
it.
Yeah,
He
that's
listen,
that's one of the covers.
he got on the radio and he did well with that, and then the next thing you know, you turn around and he's touring with Steve Jordan and Pino Palladino.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he's blowing you away with this guitar, this blues guitar, and it's like that's the guy that did "I Want to Run Through My High School."
There you go. And there's a couple that I have that are favorites, and one that did what John did, and he did pop, and now he's doing other things, and he has skills on the guitar and everything else, songwriting. He reminds me of Slash for Guns N' Roses for this reason. Yes, Slash is a damn good guitar player, period. I heard
Shredder.
his work on He Shreds and everything. But then he did Obsession Confession, and I heard it on the wave before it went pop, when it was still doing jazz and smooth jazz. And the DJ at the time, I think it was Pat Prescott,
Okay.
she said, and this was Slash Obsession Confession. And my jaw just dropped.
Well, I have to go find that.
It's a beautiful song. He just plays and plays and plays, no singing, and it's complete jazz, and it sounds more like a Spanish guitar kind of thing that he's got going on. It's just, and another group, and I'll close with this, the Yellow Jackets. They have one of my favorite piano players, other than Herbie Hancock and George Duke, is their piano player, and his name is Russell Ferrante. Um, they're just, I got to see Prince live. Matter of fact, my wife, when we got married in Vegas, he was playing with Third Eye Blind, the girl group, and it was the only time I got to see him before his passing. And it was her wedding present to me was to go see Prince because I had never seen him in
Wow.
concert. And we saw him. And I also got to see at the same show when I was going to in Boston, going to Berklee College of Music, Patti LaBelle with the Yellow Jackets. And they used to have concerts
Wow.
in the park at Charles Park and next to the Charles River. Because if you're at Berkeley, you go across the river and there's MIT,
Uh-huh.
in Cambridge. So we would go out of Berkeley, walk down to the park. I forget the name of the park, but it's right against the Charles River, where the what's the sport that Harvard,
Golf.
the rowing team, they
They call it
practice on
golf.
there all the time. And you go down, I don't know, maybe the equivalent of 7 or 8 city blocks, and they have a quad area, live free concerts all the time. And that was when I got to see them live. One of my friends in the dorms introduced me to Yellow Jack. Very technical jazz. They can go to the old school style, the new style. Check them out. They're one of my favorites. When I write music, I'm inspired by Prince, Yellow Jackets, and Quincy Jones.
That's
That's
those are some formidable entities and composers. You mentioned almost offhand. You mentioned George Duke. Some of my favorite Zappa sessions feature
oh
George
yeah,
Duke.
yeah.
Uh,
He played for him for a minute.
yeah,
He played
and,
for him for a minute.
and you know why he left the Zappa band?
Hmm.
Because Maynard Ferguson asked him to go on tour with him.
Oh, that's right. That's
He said,
right.
I love playing with Zappa, but when Maynard Ferguson calls you, you go.
Mm, you go. You go. Um,
Well, what a thrill to meet you, man.
it is a thrill to meet you as well. We're going to have to talk more because I want to pick your brain and just shoot the fat.
Yeah, chew the fat. Shoot
You chew it.
the.
Chew it. I almost said the other thing, but I'm not.
I
No,
understand.
I'm trying to keep it PG and G rated here at Music Outlook LA.
All right.
Coach K, John Klymshyn, motivational speaker, musician, and one heck of a guy. Thank you so much, sir, for giving me the opportunity. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for this episode of Music Outlook LA, gigs, gear, and info. And as I said, John Klymshyn, Coach K, my guest, thank you so much. I will put all of the information we discussed, books and so forth, in the website on the here's the website. Sorry, at the end for the credits, and you'll have all of that. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast at Spreaker.com, and we are also on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, or just about anywhere where you get your podcasts. And please take the time to rate the show at podchaser.com. I'm Will Kimsey, aka WK Music. Peace. This podcast is both brought to you and produced by Kimsey Entertainment LLC. Music Outlook LA is a copyrighted broadcast of Kimsey Entertainment LLC. The views and opinions expressed on this show are not necessarily those of Will Kimsey or Kimsey Entertainment LLC. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or any other use of this product without the express written consent of Kimsey Entertainment LLC is strictly prohibited.